from the FBI agency, as you can read up here. He's out of the Kansas City division, but he's here in Joplin. Devontae. And he's just here to visit with us about identity theft and how to avoid it. I've had my identity stolen once. I heard several people talking about they've had it. I don't know if you can avoid it, maybe totally.
Yeah, not clearly.
There's some things maybe you can do to help avoid it. So that's what he's here to visit with us about. We will let him take over.
I was told, I was promised, in fact, that I didn't need a tie. So I've already been one up by you, so thank you for that.
We told him nobody else would have a tie in the room. So.
I figured I was on college campus, there were no ties to be found anywhere. But that's okay. Good afternoon, all. I'm Kevin Caudill. I'm with the FBI here in Joplin. I've been in the FBI for 25 years. I can pull the plug on my career on January 17, 2013, which is only 5 weeks away, I believe. Who's counting? I'm not intending to do that just yet. When I moved to Missouri, I decided I wanted to be, you guys only know what I'm talking about, Oliver Wendell Douglas from Green Acres. So I bought land, which meant I had to buy a tractor, which meant I had to buy a trailer. And my wife said I can't retire until that's all paid off. So, silly me for doing all that. Been in the FBI, as I mentioned, 25 years. I was in El Paso, Albuquerque, Vegas, DC, and now Joplin. Joplin. I grew up in Stockton, graduated from school, high school in Ava, went to college in Springfield. My parents are here, and all my family basically is still here. So 25 Christmases, I have had no family other than my wife and daughter, so I'm looking forward to about 3 weeks from now. I'm here to talk about identity theft. It's a problem that continues to grow and will continue to grow for the foreseeable future. As everything becomes electronic, we're all susceptible to being impacted by this. What I intend to do today, the booklets I gave you, take those home. You might find something useful. I think we'll cover most everything that's in it. Very informal. If you have a question, got a comment, just interrupt. Don't hesitate to do that. Identity theft is kind of unique from the FBI perspective because we generally don't handle, nor does anybody really handle identity theft. Unless there's a lot of money involved, and that doesn't usually happen. It's usually very small amounts. It might be a lot to you, but it's not to us. You know, $1,000 may be a lot of money to everyone that's sitting in this room, but to us it's pretty small peanuts. The Federal Trade Commission, although they have no investigative authority for the federal government, is the primary agency for contact with identity theft. And of course, your bank is where the identity theft will be the concern. So stay close to your bank. Yes, ma'am?
Are there intentions to make one group or person, not person, but one group responsible?
Responsible?
Because it's become such an issue.
I will answer your question by telling you that the agency that would have to do that would be so big that we don't want it. I mean, there are thousands every day. This young lady, we were talking earlier, the IRS is in our building, and 3 or 4 times a week, as I'm getting on the elevator or getting off the elevator, I will see some poor schmuck whose Social Security number has been compromised in some form or fashion. They take them from dead people. Sometimes it's just a simple error, but other times they've actually stolen their identity. The last presentation I did, it was actually here on the campus for Our Best Bank. There was a gal there that went into IRS. She had the same problem, and her Social Security number had been used 4 times. There were 2 people that died in the tornado whose identities have been stolen. We know that. Social Security numbers were used. So, with that, here we go. What is definition of identity theft? I throw that up there because in the federal law and state law generally it's the same. It's identity theft only if you're trying to get financial gain. And I say that because the fact that somebody steals an identity isn't usually a crime. It's certainly not anything that can be prosecuted unless they try to get some money. And under federal law, identity theft only occurs if you know a person whose identity you stole. If you make up a name, a Social Security number that happens to be right, it's not an identity theft because it's accidental. So we can't even prosecute you You guys graduate, you get jobs, move out into the world. This is what the FBI does to everybody. We ask for absolutely anything and everything. When you apply for the FBI, you have to go back to your 16th birthday, list every residence you've lived in, every job you've ever had. What are we going to do with all that information? Well, we ask for it anyway. So keep that in the back of your mind. You have to answer the questions. You have to give that information to whomever you're dealing with. But think about where it's going to be used. You go to JCPenney and they offer you 10% off for a credit card purchase or to get a credit card. Do you really want that? Do you really want another credit card and the potential? Identity theft, as I mentioned earlier, if there's not a financial gain, it's not actually a crime under federal law. And that's because there's always another crime that's being committed. The identity theft is just what is used to get to that crime. Why does it occur? Well, I think you all know the answer to that. Credit card fraud is probably our biggest. Check fraud, I don't know about you, I don't write checks to anybody for any reason. I use bill pay or credit cards that I can track. Internet fraud, call Amazon up one day and ask them how many fraudulent transactions they had that day. Thousands, if not millions, every day. This is kind of interesting. I haven't seen it here in Joplin, but I was in Springfield not too long ago and went to Home Depot and made a purchase and used my debit card, and they asked for my zip code. And gas stations, I know they do that occasionally. They verify your billing address by zip code. Lawrence, Kansas, 2 weeks ago I had to do that.
Academy does it.
Do they? California, the Supreme Court in California ruled that the zip code is a personal identifying piece of information. And so California can no longer ask for that. Yes?
Can that also limit fraud? Because if someone finds my car, say I'm traveling, because I was up in Leavenworth a couple weeks ago. If I'd have lost my wallet up there, so maybe just use my debit card and buy whatever.
You could, and you know, it's a trade-off. And I'm not saying that this was the right decision, but I understand what they're trying to do. I have an ING account, ING account, and this morning I was checking it, and they are forcing me to go from a 4-pin identifier to a 6-pin. So now I have to have a username, I have to have a password, I have to have a photo that supposedly is what I picked in advance, and now my pin is from 4 to 6. And how much more do we have to have? And let's face facts, the 6 isn't going to stop the fraud. It's going to occur. Well, that's what I'm wondering. And I thought about calling them and saying, if you're so worried about protecting my identity, don't have internet access. Get a live body somewhere that I can go see and they can confirm my ID. But of course, that can be violated too. Driver's license can be copied, although that's getting harder to do. So, like I said, I throw this up there. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't really know, but at some point we have to have some sort of logic has to dictate this. I've thought about in my own mind, somehow the FBI tried for our BlackBerries and access to our unclassified system remotely from home, for example. They gave us a 6-digit, I'm trying to think of who the company was that provided them. I don't remember now what it was. Anyway, it's a 6-digit, it's a little key fob basically. It has a 6-digit number that every 30 seconds changes. And when you sign on, you use your username, and your password is your social security number plus the 6-digit number. And somehow they were supposed to synchronize so that in that 30-second window, this is your number. If you don't use that number, it won't work. We couldn't get them to synchronize. I gave up on it. So, but that's a concept that might work someday.
Who
But
does work with all anyhow?
well, it's easier than typing on these little BlackBerries when it's a lengthy message to headquarters. Who does call on a Saturday and Sunday? Want lengthy responses to written documentation. Okay, some numbers for you. These numbers are a little dated, of course, because the federal government, being like everybody else, we're usually a year or two behind on updating things. 7% of all households in 2010 had at least one member of the household who was victimized by identity theft. And this should be no surprise, 64% of the time the credit card was the compromised item. From 2005 to 2010, impact of identity theft, it's almost 25% of us. 330 million by 1/4 is 75 million, give or take. That's a lot of people, which goes back to whoever asked 75 million people. 75, how many investigators would it take to handle 75 million cases a year?
Hey, those are jobs.
We can hire everybody that's unemployed at this point. Kids. You might ask yourself, why kids? Well, when's the first time a child's going to have credit?
When they're 7.
I hope not. Should be 18 in most states. So if you can get their social security number, but if you remember on your taxes, you've got to have a social security number for your children by 2, I think it is. So from 2 to 18, you got a social security number, a name that will never question. And carrying that to its logical conclusion, what happens when you call a credit agency, a bank, IRS, FBI, and say, I want to check on somebody else and their social security number? I'm not going to tell you anything, even if it's your child. It's only the child can call, but they can't call because they're 3 years old.
So what happens when they get 18 and they apply for a credit card and they find out they're 10 million in debt?
Well, as I shared with this young lady a bit ago, we got a call yesterday in the office. A gal in Hawaii who's going into graduate school got a letter from Chase student loan, and the letter said you're delinquent on your Chase student loan. She makes a phone call and says, I don't have a Chase student loan. To which the Chase person replied, yes, you do, for $350,000. And she got the paperwork, and it appears to be her parents. So, there you go. Now think about that logically. She's in Hawaii, she's from here. Where are any letters going to go? Where's any correspondence related to that student loan going to go? To her parents, to their house.
How do you do situations like that?
Well, fortunately, she'd already called Jasper County Sheriff's Office, and I'm letting them get all the paperwork together because I think there's probably something more going on. I think she's probably involved, if in fact that's real. But I don't know. It could be. It happens. 140,000 identity fraud cases expires each year, according to 2011 numbers, which doesn't seem like a lot, but again, it's kind of terrifying. I've got a 14-year-old daughter. I can only imagine, she gets to 18 years old and starts applying for student loans, and we get a letter saying, you've already got $200,000 or something.
If your 7-year-old gets a credit card offer in the mail, is that likely someone stolen her identity?
No, it is not. That means they go to Social Security. Social Security will give that information out. Social Security numbers and names for solicitations. Federal government sells it. Okay.
So if you work at a company that does that, you can just start writing those down, print off a sheet of.
Well, we're going to get into opting out of that kind of stuff. You can do that. It's kind of like the phone number where you opt out of the. You can do that with your bank and your credit cards. How does it happen? The guy hanging out of the dumpster. Under federal law and state law, I think it's the same. When you put your trash out for pickup, it is no longer yours. And so these guys come along at 4 in the morning when your trash can's sitting out in front of your house and pull out that credit card offer you just got, or your daughter got, or your dog got, and they become whoever that person is. It's easy to do. Change the address. Keep the same name if you want. Scratch through the address, write in their new address, whatever it might be. UPS has a real problem with, they call us quite often because it's delivered to a house that appears to be unoccupied. Somebody nearby has ordered something, and they're watching the house just like UPS is doing, waiting for their boombox or whatever they might have ordered, their iPad to come in and go grab it. So UPS calls us on empty houses or ED. Electronic interceptions, sniffers. You guys probably all know more about this than I do, but theft of your internet access, your modem, stuff like that, lock them down. Employee theft, it's actually very common. The intrusions, I point that out because for the first time that we know of here in Joplin and Springfield, there was a pharmacy in Mount Vernon whose bank account got hacked. And the bank, for the first time that I know of, is saying, you didn't protect your computer, it's your fault, and we are not going to reimburse you for $40,000. How would you like that? So lock your systems down, have a real password, have a real username, at least defend yourself if you get to that position. Can you trust the mailman? He can, I mean, think about what the mailman knows about you and the credit card offers that he or she handles every day. Delivers your checks. Delivers your checks if you get them by there. But I can assure you that when we go out, especially in the rural areas, and do what we do, the first person we want to talk to is the mail carrier. They can tell us their schedule, who lives there, how long they live there, what they do, what they don't do. Employee theft. Unfortunately, it happens all the time in the FBI. We've had it. Phishing with a PH. This is actually, it can be pretty complicated or it can be very simple. The simple versions, they'll take a website and they'll white out, they'll actually change the font to white so you can't read it. And it'll give you warnings and things like that you can't see. You think it's legitimate, you do your thing, put in your username, your password. You've been phished. This is a card skimmer. As you can see, it's what, 1.25 inches by 3.5, give or take. If you go to a restaurant, use your credit card. Waiter or waitress takes your credit card out of sight. They got one of those in the back. They got one of those in their apron, in their jacket. You're amazed at how much information on that magnetic strip of the credit card. Got everything about you. Social security numbers included. There's one inside your jacket. Glued inside. We got that off of a restaurant in Kansas City. A restaurant employee had that in his jacket. And we, about once a month, will get a call from a bank who will have one of these in some form mounted over the ATM slot. And it looks like it's supposed to be there. And so when you slide your card in, theirs is reading it as well as the bank, because you have to really put it in there a long way.
ATMs have cameras, so don't they see people doing that?
Only if they're looking at the video later. The cameras are not monitored, those banks.
Well, yeah, but, okay, so they don't catch it right away.
I was gonna say, you
Where's ski mask?
you got that. We have, if you're from here, we had the mosque fire on the north side of town, or west side of town, I guess, yeah, west side. In August, we actually had an attempt in July. We have a pretty good video. We know the guy, what he looks like. Don't know who he is. Here we are in December, we still don't have a suspect. We got a picture. And a $50,000 reward.
You should bring that picture.
I know.
It's on our website, kansascityfbi.gov.
We got more money than that.
Is it
Bring
spelled out
that
Kansas
picture
City?
over.
I'm sorry, what?
We got more money than that, bring that picture over.
I'll tell you what, I have offered to family and friends, you know, just go to prison for a few years. It's not that bad. 3 squares and cable.
Is Kansas City spelled out, or is it KC, or?
It's FBI.gov, and then you click on which office you want. Kansas City is one of them. It's on the homepage for Kansas City. Internet information brokers. Don't know if you know this, but it goes back to the solicitations we talked about earlier. ChoicePoint and LexisNexis maintain basically your life. And occasionally, I'm trying to think, I did a loan application for a house. I think that's what it was. And one of the things they asked me to verify who I was, they gave me 3 or 4 questions, one of which was 4 addresses. Which one did I used to live on? And it was like 20 years ago. What car I had owned at one time. I mean, it's amazing what they know about you. And that's fine until it gets stolen, it gets hacked, your employees take it. They've got everything they need to be you. Spyware. This is kind of interesting. I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly because I don't want to bore you. But this is an example of, this is actually a piece of software you can buy, spyware. And what it is as you'll see, under the auspices of checking on your lover, but you can use it for anything, of course. And you buy this for, I think it's $98 or something. Thought I had it on there, but I guess not. 89, okay. $89. You buy the software, you put it on your computer, and then you send an email. This is, before you do that though, you create your account. What are you going to name the computer where you're going to send this to? Okay. And then you send this cute little picture, these cute little words. Flowers, these are for you. Little box, whatever it might be. And your friend, you put a note on it. You know, I thought you'd like this. How many of those emails do you get a week? Thought you'd like this. And you click on any of that. What happens? Software is immediately downloaded to your computer. All right, so now I'm back at my bachelor pad in the basement with no windows, scantily clad. Pizza. I don't know what you're thinking back there. I'm married. And this pops up on your computer. You say, great. Got what I want. You sign, they sign in or you sign in. Let's see, which way is this going? This is Yahoo. So this is your email. You're the victim. And this is what I start getting. Everything you're doing. Email, every button you push. Land title, enter, bunch of numbers. And it gets worse. What's your password? My password. You just did it. These are all the accounts you go to.
Tell your friends.
These are the accounts. These are the web pages you looked at. You're gonna find a pin in there somewhere. Oh, there's Bank One. I bet you have an account at Bank One. Let's go try that pin. Let's try that username that's back there somewhere. These are all the pieces of software that are now on your computer that you don't even know is there. What do they do? Used to bypass your zone alarm security features. One down there, the second one from the bottom. Send mail direct mx.vbp. What does that do? It sends their emails back to you. Computer compromises. Happens all the time. We and the Secret Service are the two main federal agencies to handle this kind of thing. Excuse me. I can tell you though that we almost never open the cases because whoever compromised your computer isn't from the U.S. And we can't arrest people in foreign countries. And the old Russian, Eastern Russian bloc countries have the best internet and computer systems in the world and some of the highest unemployment in the world. So guess what the boys and girls there do all day long? They sit and try to hack. They have nothing else to do. So this is our security system at the FBI. Boss is worried about information security, so he sends his messages one alphabet letter at a time in random sequence.
Yeah.
I swear to the good Lord on Saturdays, sometimes headquarters will send me something, I think this is what they've done, but it makes no sense. All right, so what can you do to protect yourself? Back to the post office. Basically, become your own postman. Know your billing cycles. Contact creditors when bills fail to show up, or as an alternative, go to get your bill pay going on your bank account and have your bills sent electronically so you don't have to worry about this. Do not ever use the mailbox in front of your house to send a letter. Don't ever do that. Before providing personal identifiers, know how we use. Go buy a car this afternoon now, see how much information they ask about you. Unless you've really decided to buy that car, don't give it to them. Only carry essential identification cards. You mentioned earlier you had your Social Security number. I haven't carried a Social Security number card, whatever, in years and years and years. Man, I know what it is. And nobody's ever going to ask you for it. So don't carry it.
Little League asked me for it.
Do they really?
Yeah.
They actually ask for the card?
I had to provide the card for all my children.
Did you really?
A copy of it.
Well, now that I can see for your children, and there are circumstances, but as an adult, I mean, have you ever needed it as an adult?
Not that I can remember, but I still carry it.
Yeah.
Oops, I should.
There's no reason to.
Yeah.
Just a little piece of U.S. history. Social Security numbers were never intended to be used as
It
identity.
tells you on the paper, you don't need to carry it, put it in a safe place.
Yeah.
And we all carry it.
I do not carry.
If
but-
you apply for things, you have to have, like, I'm low income in a foreign school, so I don't work much. So I get like assistance and stuff. Every time I go there, I have to have both me and my daughter's social security cards.
Do you really? Wow.
They tell me I have to. I
What do
mean,
they use it for?
I don't know. And they have it, so why do I have to show it every single time?
Well,
But
especially
I
without a
do.
photo attached, it's not identification
yeah.
for you.
I mean, it's got her name on it, and mine, but.
I would ask them, what do they need it for? I'd be curious. Man, there's no purpose it serves.
Maybe to show ownership that you had it.
Is it true,
Yes?
is it true that your driver's license number is your social security?
No,
It used to
not
Used to
really.
be.
Used to be.
You can do that.
In fact, I don't know if this is common or not, but the FBI about 4 years ago, again, because of, it's not supposed to be used as an identifier, I have a 9-digit, I think it's 9 or 10-digit number that's completely random of Social Security. But, me being the FBI and we being the FBI, still put both numbers on everything. You pull up your payroll, for example, both numbers are there. So I guess we're still in the transition mode in 4 years. But at least they thought about it. Shredders. I live out in the country, so I burn. I'm a burner. Bank statements, burn. Credit card solicitations, burn.
Are you the one that set the mosque on fire?
No, I was not.
Sorry, you're a burner.
But my mom will tell you that as a child, I would have been a great arsonist. I loved fire. I still love
Now
fire.
you were.
You got a lot in common.
I just don't do it to hurt me. I mean, I just do it, my burn piles and things like that. Order copies of your credit report once a year. You can do that for free. Now, they passed that law 2 or 3 years ago. And do it every year. First of the year, go do it. And then as a reminder, the first year, redo it. It's amazing what'll be on there.
And it's free
It's
to do
free.
that, or you have to pay for that?
It's free, one time a year.
One time a year you can get it.
And
Who
we'll
do you
we'll
ask?
get there in a minute.
Okay.
Do not give personal info over the phone. In a perfect world, but at least know who you're giving it to. Our host here a bit earlier shared with me that his wife got a call on a Saturday, caller claiming to be the bank needing her PIN. Fortunately, she realized what she'd done right after she did it.
I did it, that's the
She
problem.
did good. Take advantage of alerts from your bank. Don't know if you have that set up. I have mine set up for $200 withdrawals and every deposit. And I also do specific checks. If I actually write a check, which is very rare. I get an alert 3 or 4 times a week, just so I know what's going on in my bank account. And I get my balance every 5th day, just so I can make sure doing what it's supposed to be doing. We talked about this a bit ago. Opt out of credit card and other direct mail. The direct mail is the solicitation for credit cards. I apologize, there's no place for me to stand that I'm not in somebody's way. 800 number, 888 number for credit card solicitations. And direct mail is anything but credit cards. You can opt out of both, one or the other, just like the phone number opt out. And it does work.
Do they have to follow that?
Yes.
Really?
Um,
So if you do this, and you still get those?
It takes a couple months to get you out of the system. Once you're out, you're gonna be out. Because they don't want to get the fines. It's not worth it to them.
Capital One can send it to you, you get like two a week.
Have you told them to stop that?
I went online and did it, I called their number and did it.
Do it this way. Don't do the company. Because it may not ever get to who it needs to get to.
Is that in the book? Is that it?
To be honest with you, I think it's in the back. I won't swear that. If not, we can come back to it. Credit card reporting. This is FTC.
It's down at the bottom of the back cover. It's that back cover.
Back cover.
Down yonder, down there.
These are some of the things that have come out relatively recently. Your ads for LifeLock. RVS Bank offers ID Protect. You got to pay for them or have an account. I don't know how well they really work. I don't know how well they could work. They claim they work wonderfully. I honestly don't know. I've never had one myself. Something you gotta do, you can freeze your credit report. It's a good thing? Of course it is. Is it a bad thing? Of course it is. You go to buy that brand new pickup on a Saturday afternoon and you've opted out of your credit report, you're not walking out with a new truck that day because they won't be able to check your credit. You gotta make the call.
Does that work that if you're trying to apply for a job and they're checking your credit and they
Yeah.
can't, then they won't hire you?
Well, think about it.
Why does the job need to check your credit?
Well,
They just do.
they wanna make sure they're not getting somebody to steal all the money out of the till,
Yeah.
if nothing else. And if you have credit issues, do you really think you're a worthy employee?
Yes.
Well, I have
Yeah.
good credit, I just don't want anybody
I think it
touching
shows
it.
responsibility.
Yeah.
And if you're responsible with your finances, you'll be responsible in the workplace.
When the unemployment rate's at 10%,
Yeah, but
And I can
along
hire-
with
hire
that
you with
credit
that credit or
report,
him with
it
good?
tells them every bit of
no, it
credit
does
that
not.
Oh, it doesn't?
It does not.
Okay.
It will only tell them if you have credit issues.
Okay.
If
So
you have
they
good
don't
credit, it'll
get
be
in-
0. That's what they get. But the company that's behind what they're getting has all of it. So there is that check a little bit. And it's one of those things, I don't, as a potential employer, I don't want to know your credit card accounts. I have no need for that. And so it protects me because I can say, I never got that. But I also know that you're credit worthy. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
so there is that protection built into it. But again, that information's still there. Somebody's got it. Because somebody's got to be able to tell me to check your credit. Computer security. If I didn't make my point with the issue of Mount Vernon, let me reiterate here. Make sure all your stuff's updated. Date somebody that knows computers if you don't yourself. Or make sure the person that you're dating has somebody that knows computers. What to do if you're victimized? These are the 3 credit reporting agencies: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Get out of the way here. You can call these numbers. You can also go online. And I can't tell you, was that in there on that back page where you can sign on and you can do all 3 at one time? I just did it a couple months ago. And it's really easy. You get it back almost immediately. But if you have something happen, this is an excellent place to start. I've got it out of sequence. This is step 1. I would call your bank first. But 1, 2, in a hurry if you see an issue. And what you're doing is when you've been victimized, you're not locking your credit down, but you're putting it on notice that there's an issue out there. And so you go to buy the Ford on a Saturday, they're going to know there's an issue and they're going to try to figure out what's going on. Try to protect you. Account issuer in question, this is usually going to be your bank. Call the fraud security department. Most of them have 24/7 operations. And I bank with USAA, which is a military bank out of San Antonio. They actually call me far more than I call them. And they also just recently established a